Good afternoon. It is encouraging and awesome to see all of you here today. Thank you for coming, braving the /cold/sun. It's a beautiful day. And thank you for standing up for freedom on this un-UN day. I love this part over here with being able to talk about the dangers of the United Nations, and particularly from my experience, I'll share with you just kind of what I see coming down the pike. Those of you who don't know about my background, first of all, my name is Shahram Hadian, and I am running for governor, by the way, so in case you guys didn't know that. My background, I am originally from Iran. I was born in Iran, and my parents, my father was actually in the military under the Shah of Iran, and my mom was a school teacher there, and we left, and they knew things were changing in Iran in about the mid-1970s. And we left just before the fall of the revolution, 6 weeks before, not really knowing what was coming, and left with nothing. We left everything behind to come out and come to America for freedom. And it is still that concept of America as a place of freedom is still in the world. And many look at it as that value, as that beacon on a hill. But for us, it was that. So we came to America, and then some circumstances moved us to Canada. We were there for a while, and I actually, about 13 years ago, moved back to the U.S. legally. I waited 8.5 years to get my green card, and another 6 years to become a proud U.S. citizen. And this is my home. This is our home. And so for me, what I witnessed in Iran, because of Islam coming in and the rise of Islam, by the way, the Iranian people back in the 1970s were being told, as we hear from the UN, as we hear from the international community, as we hear from our elected officials in the media, that what we see happening right now over in the Middle East is a democratic Arab Spring. It's a movement that is wonderful. That is exactly what the Iranian people were being told in the 1970s, that if you usher in Islam, everything will get better, we get rid of this dictator, and life will come wonderful. Well, now talk to the Iranian people 32 years later and ask them what it's been like to live under oppressive Islamic law and Islamic government that, by the way, the United Nations not only recognizes, but I think one of the biggest things that gives the UN no credibility in my book is when they put Iran on the Council of Human Rights for Women. That's a joke. And so I witnessed my birth country lose all of its freedom. And now I'm here in America. This is my home. And I'm concerned for our freedoms here. I'm seeing things come. And I'll address a few of those in a minute. What we see particularly coming from UN agendas and UN policies that our government wants to implement. Just for those of you who don't know, the biggest change in my life happened 12 years ago when I did become a Christian. I'm a follower of Christ, and I'm a pastor. I've been a Christian pastor for the last 9.5 years, and had other background experience in law enforcement, teacher, coach, and so forth. But particularly the last 1.5 years, I've been traveling around the country with my company called the TIL Project, the Truth and Love Project, particularly speaking on the issue of Islam, the goals and the challenges of Islam, what we have not been told about this, and particularly talking about Islamic Sharia law, which is one of the goals of the UN. That they have supported Islamic law, they have validated Islamic law, and what we don't know as Americans is that it is completely the antithesis of our Constitution. There is nothing that coexists with the two. And by the way, as I've traveled around, and I will, pretty confident you guys will agree with me, as I've traveled around, the consistent theme that we've heard, with all the things that are going on in our state and our nation, and the crisis that we face, is people are saying, enough with political correctness, it's time that we hear the truth, it's time we know what the truth is so we can accurately and properly deal with it. Would you agree with me on that? Yes! And so that's why we have to be able to speak the truth in love. And in fact, you know, and here's one of the things. With what I specifically talk about with my company about Islamic law and UN agendas, one of the things that people say to me, and I still hear this day by day, and you probably hear it too, is that, well, this will never happen in America. It can never happen here. No, it is happening here, and in fact, our laws, because of the purity of our Constitution, it actually opens the door, unfortunately, for many of these things to happen, and we just sort of turn a blind eye to it. In fact, last year in America, we had over 50 court cases where Islamic law was used in our courts for here in Washington State. And people say, oh, it'll never happen here. It's already happening. Our laws are already being tweaked. In fact, the Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, she, after the recent incident that happened in Norway, is now proposing that we implement a new UN agenda, which is 16/18, that is called the Defamation of Religion Agenda. See, she loves what's going on in Europe, right? She loves what's going on in Europe, so now we want to bring it to America. Well, guess what that's going to do for our freedom of religion, our freedom of speech? Because now if you and I defame something by speaking the truth about it, now we can be charged with a hate crime. And this is a UN agenda that they want to bring into here. And so it is so important that we work to protect our Constitution. And it's even unfortunate that we have to do this, but there are actually 4 states that have passed laws called American Laws for American Courts. And that simply says that we, our judiciary and our legislatures, our legislative branch, they will use only the U.S. Constitution and our state constitution to adjudicate. No more foreign laws. Yeah. So 4 states have passed it. In fact, Representative McCune, next session is going to drop it here. He needs our support so we can get it out of committee and be able to show the legislators here and our governor and our attorney general and so forth why we need to have this law to protect our Constitution here in the state of Washington. And I have also spoken with the governor over in Idaho and their legislative branch. They're going to drop it there, and we're hoping that they can become the 5th state. But my guarantee as governor is we'll pass this law here because unfortunately we have to. We have to be able to hold our judges accountable who are using foreign law and without any accountability and any ability to pull them back. And so one of the stipulations that I'd love to add to this law is that judges who use foreign law should be immediately impeached or recalled. And so let me just share with you a little bit, because my title of my talk today is supposed to be about particularly Israel and the UN. And one of the things I can tell you is that when I became a Christian, almost overnight, my heart grew so big for Israel.
All right.
And that it is our duty to stand with the nation of Israel as our greatest ally and as a sovereign nation, may I add. And they have every right to their capital, to their land. And I am disgusted by the fact that our president or any of our elected officials would force Israel to negotiate with a terror organization, i.e. Hamas, when they have Hezbollah to the north, they have Hamas to the east, and soon to be, remember the Arab Spring in Egypt? Remember it was going to be a democratic movement? And now even Al Jazeera is saying that 50% of the seats in parliament in the November elections in Egypt are going to go to the Muslim Brotherhood. Over 50%. And you know what they've already said they're going to do? By the way, they've come out and publicly said, the Muslim Brotherhood, they said, look, we're going to have a free election in Egypt. Couple of stipulations. No women, Jews, or Christians are allowed to run for the presidency. Other than that, we're going to have a wonderful free election. This is freedom, right? No, that's not freedom. That's Islam rising up. That's oppressive. And here's the thing. The UN supports all of this. And I agree with Phil when he said, we have to absolutely defund the United Nations. Not one single dime should be going to fund the United Nations. On that note, we also have to make sure that we're not supporting countries with our money like Egypt, where we give $1 billion to them, or the Palestinian Authority, when their intended goal is to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. Why are we giving money to these governments, and particularly we gave $1 billion of aid to Egypt when there is no government in place? And so these are things that we have to understand. Now, Israel dodged somewhat of a bullet. How many of you are familiar with the UN resolution that was going to be signed last month? Okay, that resolution that the president has said he was going to support, last year, remember he was at the UN, he said by next year we want to see a Palestinian state. Now, I don't know what happened. By the way, I think the election in New York District 9 had a lot to do with his change of mind, because that district that had been democratically held for 91 years changed hands, and the exit polling showed the top 2 issues were the marriage issue and Israel. And so maybe he got the message. I'm not quite sure. But the fact is that he was going to support the resolution out of the UN that would have divided the land of Israel and the city of Jerusalem. Now, by the grace of God, it didn't happen, but the UN now is going to give the Palestinians observer status, which means they can sit on every meeting, and any meetings or any talks that are being held or any resolutions that are being held sanctioning Israel, now they're going to be a part of those meetings. Now remember, what is their stated goal? The annihilation of Israel. Iran, what is their stated goal? The annihilation of Israel. Nothing less. Please don't let them tell you that they can... How can you negotiate with somebody that wants to destroy you? Pretty hard to do that, right? So we have to, again, stand up with Israel, make sure that we're supporting our ally, make sure that, by the way, we in the state of Washington, I want to see our state actually begin economic trade with the state of Israel, because it will be a blessing for both the state of Israel and the state of Washington. And we have to start this, but we got to first of all be able to stand up against the UN and all these agendas that are coming in, because if we allow them to continue to change our laws and our Constitution and basically have disregard, then what is coming is the loss of our freedoms. And that's what I've witnessed, and I don't want to witness it again. Our hope in this nation is that we are a nation under God. And I pray, and people say all the time, we want God to bless America. I want God to bless America. I want God to intervene and protect America from enemies, foreign and domestic. And we have to first of all know that we are a sovereign nation, not a borderless nation, not a UN, we don't work for the United Nations. We are a sovereign nation on this planet. And we must stand and we must pray for this nation. We must pray that God will uphold this nation. But we have to turn our hearts. And we have to turn our eyes. And we have to be able to have righteous leadership, by the way. Now, I want to ask you one more thing. Think about this. If America falls, where do we go? Where do we go? I don't have anywhere else to go. This is my home. And it is this time, the founders knew. The founders, who many of them gave up their lives. They gave up their fortunes, their reputations, they put it all on the line. They knew there was a divine moment that with God's help they were about to birth a nation. We have seen America be the greatest nation in the history of the world. No other nation has had the freedom and the purity of freedom. And now this nation is at risk. And I never would have thought, I would have said a few years ago if you had asked me, I can see the demise of America. But for the first time in my life being here, I can see it. So it is our time that we stand up courageously. And not just for our generation, but as Judah spoke, for the next generation. To stand courageously and make everything, put everything on the line to defend our nation and to defend our freedoms. So may God bless America. May God truly protect America and intervene. Thank you so much. Come by our table and love to talk with you guys further. And thank you for being here. Thank you. God bless.